Hi everyone, my name is Salting and welcome back to my channel. In this video, I want to share with you about my experience during my student exchange program. So a little bit of background about my exchange program. I exchanged to Peking University, PKU, as a year 4 computer science undergraduate from August 2023 to January 2024. And some of the modules I took are computer network, operating system, text mining, and Japanese. They're all taught in Chinese. Yes, computing in Chinese. So a lot of people ask me why did I choose China, right? Because it's probably not the first thing that comes to mind when it comes to computer science. A lot of people would prefer Western countries. And for me, exchange was never just about academics. It's more about experiencing a new lifestyle, and that's why I chose to go China in the end because I did consider working in China or living long term in the future in China. So I wanted to take this chance to experience how is it like to live in China for a long period of time. And so that's why I decided to exchange to China, Peking University. In this video, I will cover some of the things I like and I didn't like about my exchange program, and also how I deal with the problems that I had, as well as some pieces of advice for you guys who might also be interested in the exchange program. Hopefully, it will be helpful for you. I really liked the infinite possibilities I had in China. I was really having a really vibrant lifestyle. Life can never get bored. If it gets bored, just travel to a new city. So, in a short span of 6 months, I traveled to almost about 10 cities, including Shanghai, Chengdu, Chongqing, Hangzhou, Shenzhen, Hong Kong, Harbin, and so on. Then I traveled to many cities with different groups of friends, and they are all very distinct from each other. They each have their own distinct culture, sometimes even language, costume, food, and people, the way people behave and the way people dress up. It's just so different between the cities. And I find that really interesting. And transportation is so convenient. So, for example, from Beijing to Tianjin, it's only less than a 30 minutes train ride. So you could literally do it on a weekday itself. And from Shanghai to Beijing by flight is also just about 2 hours plus. So it's really convenient to travel to new places in China. And in China, I really get to experience autumn and winter, something that Singapore doesn't have. Yeah, and I did so many winter activities like skiing, snowboarding, and playing snowball fight with my friends and building a snowman with my friends. And also, we lighted our own fireworks during the New Year countdown, things like that I otherwise wouldn't be able to do in Singapore. I was able to do them in China. I really was able to check off a lot of my checklists. That's something that I really appreciate. And secondly, I feel like in China, I can freely learn or do what I want without having much worry or concern, and I can be who I want to be, free of judgment. So when I was in PKU studying, I took on a lot of clubs and societies events. So I joined the piano club, but at the same time, I also took on beginner courses for guitar, violin, tennis, and ice skating classes. So basically, I go for all four trainings every week, and it was really so fun. The courses are so cheap as well because they are taught by students themselves. So for tennis, it's about $16 per 2 hours per week, and for guitar, it's about around $7 per 2 hours per week, and for violin, it's about $10 per hour per week, and for ice skating, it's about $20 per hour per week, and with unlimited time of skating. So usually I skate for about 3 hours in total. I really think it's a place where I can learn anything I want to without having to worry about what people would judge or think about me. Because in Singapore, joining clubs and societies may be quite difficult. Sometimes they require you to already have a certain foundation, whereas in China, these courses are really targeted at beginners with no foundation at all. So yeah, I was really able to explore new interests and passion, and I was really very happy about it. And they are at a cost that you can never find in Singapore. So yeah, and then also people don't judge, so I can be anything I like to be. From the videos you can see, I dyed my hair pink, and I feel like people generally are very free in expressing their identities through their outfit and physical appearance. And the third thing I like about my exchange experience is, of course, the cultural experience that I had. So I get to go to the places that I wanted to. For example, the Forbidden City, Great Wall, and some of the places where famous Chinese artists or poets used to stay. And also, I got to watch the Li Bai theater performance. I got to watch 相声, which is kind of like the Chinese, comedy show. And most importantly, I got to watch my idol concert at the Beijing Olympic Stadium. It really feels so incredible to be in the same space as your idol. And yeah, it's really a dream come true for me. And I really am so thankful for this exchange experience that I can see my idol in real life. And also trying on different cultural costume. I did try a lot of different cultural costume, and I really was able to appreciate each of them. And the last thing I would like to share is that I was very lucky that I made a lot of new friends from different backgrounds, including local students and international students. I met a lot of really nice, sensitive, helpful, and kind people, and I'm very grateful for them. We would have frequent heart-to-heart talks where we share about our insecurities and our struggles in PKU together as exchange students. So, for example, learning everything in Chinese was a common struggle that we all have. And also, we will, travel, study, eat, and just chill together. And I really enjoy those time with them. And I also appreciate how they are all kind of taking different majors, because back when I was in Singapore, I think most of my friends are mostly in the field of computing. Whereas when I was in China, I got to meet people who, major in Chinese or major in business or just from other faculty, and I really appreciate that. What I didn't like about the exchange, I'm gonna be super honest with you guys, but just a disclaimer again, everything is purely based on my own personal experience. You may or may not agree with me, and that's okay. So, the first thing that I didn't like was I had a very big cultural shock at the start, and I really felt very helpless. I would say that my exchange really started off at the bottom. I think my day one at PKU was probably one of my worst day ever during the exchange. And one of the biggest issue I faced at that point was about accommodation. So in order to secure the accommodation, I went to the school a few days earlier to kind of sign a contract and check in. And I was able to get my contract signed with the room number written on the contract and my name and date that I can stay from and until. So everything was decided, and the staff told me that, if I want to check in today, I will have to start paying today, but because I will be going on a trip afterwards, so I can come back later and they will be able to keep the room for me. So that's what I did. I came back a few days later only to realize that they have already allocated my room to someone else. And so I felt super helpless because I had a contract signed with me and they just refuses to help me. So I went to talk to the person who are responsible for the allocation, and she just simply dismissed me, and she told me that it's impossible for them to change the room for me anymore. And they say the only rooms left now are the ones at basement 1. And that was when I really got one of the most shocking moments in my life. I've never expected myself to be living at basement 1. And so I asked the staff, so are there windows in the room? And she said, there are windows, but there's no sunlight. And that's the moment when I really felt like there were thunderstorms in my head. I really would never have expected that. I tried to negotiate with the person. I tried to show her the contract that I have, but she just refused to help me. And so that day I checked in, and I was so helpless. I felt so disregarded of, and yeah, I cried really badly that day. Well, the lucky thing is I told my mom, and she was really angry about it. She came to the school to like talk to the staff, and I was able to move to a room at level 6, so that was fortunate, and I'm very thankful for her. The second thing that I didn't like about my exchange was that at the start I felt very lonely, left out, and I felt very out of place, especially because the school has a lack of instructions and clarity for the exchangers. So every exchangers kind of have different set of information, and it was very unclear to us whether what are some of the things we should be doing. For example, some people are invited to the freshman opening ceremony, while some are not, and some are invited to faculty orientation events. For me personally, I wasn't invited to any events, any faculty or university level events, and I just felt super left out, and I was so worried if the school missed me out or I'm not getting some information, because there was no one bringing me around the school, like bring me around Beijing, and I just felt like very lost while I see all my other friends, exchange friends, already making new friends with their faculty people. So that was one thing I didn't like. So the last thing I didn't like was the educational system. I felt like there was a lack of real interest and passion in both the students and teachers. Students are mostly interested in grades and not the topics. This can be seen by, on the first day, so many students trying to ask the teachers how the finals are being graded, how the courses are being graded, and so on. And for teachers, some of them they purely deliver but care less about developing the interest in students. I feel like this is something I really took for granted of back when I was in Singapore and US. In NUS, profs are so passionate in teaching and trying to help the student learn. You can see it through their efforts in, utilizing tools like Visual Algo or gamification through Source Academy. All these kind of very fun and interesting ways to help students grow more passionate in computing and to visualize, to learn better. But all of these efforts are kind of not visible in PKU. And I also felt like the education relied heavily on textbook studying, not much practical practice. So I heard that some year 3 computing students have not used Git before, even though it's a really important versioning tool that we would have already used in year 1 in NUS. And there's a lot of content. Sometimes I feel like PKU emphasize on quantity over quality. In terms of infrastructure wise, they were still using Blackboard and chalk. The textbook reference were all in English, so the concepts were in English, but they were being translated into Chinese, which sometimes the naming doesn't really make sense once it's being translated, and that's something that makes it even harder to study. In the end, how I managed to address these gaps was that I realized I needed to set my priorities right. In the past, I kept focusing on what I gave up in exchange for this program. For example, like opportunities I could have if I were in Singapore, being comfortable with friends, the school, the faculty, being familiar with the school system and administration. All this comfort that I had, I wasn't able to have them during the exchange. I realized that I needed to accept that there are differences in culture and differences between expectation and reality. And I needed a shift in mindset to focus on what I want to gain from this experience instead. So I made a priority list. My priority is firstly, I want to take this time to focus on job hunting because I'm already a year 4 computing student and I'm graduating very soon. I wanted to secure a graduate job during my exchange. Secondly, I wanted to explore China to experience new environment and to be able to independently travel. And thirdly, to follow my passion to pick up new skills. I was able to learn violin, guitar, ice skating, and tennis, which are all something that I've always wanted to learn and find it very difficult to pick them up in Singapore. And lastly, to pass my modules, of course. Some of the advice that I would give to you if you are considering for an exchange as well would be firstly, know what you want to gain the most from the exchange based on your own personal life, goal, or direction. Set your priorities and ask yourself what do you like the most about that country and why that specific country or school. Is your focus on academic or experiencing life? For me, it was more about experiencing life than academics. And the biggest takeaway I had are the cultural experience as well as being able to secure my graduate job. And so, secondly, is to be open minded. Stop focusing on the opportunity cost. They are bound to have differences and sacrifices, but instead of focusing on what you don't have, enjoy what you have because, anyways, you only have 6 months to experience them, and perhaps maybe it might be a life changing experience for you. Who knows? So, that's the end of my video. Thank you for listening to the end, and I wish you all the best for your future endeavors.